She may not have had the pedagogical impact of her older sister, but her work speaks for itself. I'm the Classical Nerd, and today we're talking about Lili Boulanger. Lili Boulanger was born in 1893, and music became a lifelong love. She had perfect pitch and sang, played the piano and various string instruments, and studied any scores that she could get her hands on. Her musical prowess was discovered by none other than Gabriel Fauré, who became one of her earliest teachers. All this was despite her poor health. She suffered a severe case of pneumonia when she was 2, and she was susceptible to illness all throughout her life, not the least of which was what they knew as intestinal tuberculosis, what we know today as Crohn's disease. Did I mention she could speak 3 languages? Because she could speak 3 languages. Her older sister Nadia describes Lili's young life as follows. Lili roamed about musically, playing the piano a little, the violin a little, the organ a little, composing. She already had ideas, some of which were developed in a very moving way. I believe that her whole talent was rooted in her first knowledge of grief. When our father died, she was 6 years old, and at 6 she understood what death was, that it is the grief of surviving someone you love. She was so gifted that, when still a baby, at 2.5, she used to sing all the time. Moreover, much later, Fauré quite often used to come to accompany her gladly because she could sight-read a melody, of which she might not have been expected to understand anything, but of which she seemed to understand everything. Lili often accompanied Nadia to her classes at the Paris Conservatoire. After a few attempts, Nadia had given up on winning the Conservatoire's coveted Prix de Rome, something that their septuagenarian father had done in 1835. Lili had to withdraw from the 1912 prize due to illness, but won it nearly unanimously in 1913. The Prix de Rome was headline news then, and Lili's prowess in composition likewise turned heads, especially considering that she was up to a decade younger than the male entrants that year. From then on, Nadia decided to devote her efforts to musical pedagogy because she considered Lili the more talented composer. Lili knew the kind of demanding conditions under which she had to work in order to actually compete, much less win the Prix de Rome, including, most gruelingly, the composition of a cantata in mere days, armed with nothing but bread and water and a small, dank room. Despite health concerns from both Nadia and her mother, she decided to press on. In fact, she speed-wrote cantatas just to prepare, and so she wouldn't be as nervous in that part of the competition. Although she destroyed many of these practice cantatas, choral orchestral forces remain the highlight of her compositional career. Nearly all of her surviving output is in that epic genre, and her orchestrational techniques included the novel approach of actually integrating the choral voices as part of the orchestral texture. The orchestra, in Lili's mind, was not just simply something to support the chorus. The chorus was deeply embedded in the actual orchestration of various sonorities. Her gift for melody often led her to overlap ideas, giving a sense of lyricism and breadth to all of her work. The grand prize for the Prix de Rome was a trip to Rome. Well, what do you think it was? Illness, measles this time, delayed her trip, and when she finally arrived at the French Academy, she faced openly sexist hostility from the establishment. After World War I broke out, she ended up back in Paris due to illness. Her work became much more devout, with her most famous pieces likely being her 3 psalm settings, 24, 129, and 130. These synthesized her outlook on what was now an obviously fatal illness, in the genre that had really become her musical wheelhouse. She died in March of 1918, after dictating her last work to Nadia while on her deathbed. Her death shook Paris even more than the shock of all the troops lost in the war. A scholarship was established in her name, and Nadia went on to promote her sister's music throughout the remainder of her long life. Her works contain some of the best choral orchestral writing of the 20th century, as Lili epitomized all the things that made French music great. Somehow she was able to spin together the best aspects of both Debussy and Wagner, 2 very diametrically opposed composers. Her perseverance through terminal illness to establish herself as one of music history's greatest geniuses makes her early death just that much more tragic.